girlfriend said she wasn't turned on to me anymore. She said I wasn't warm and cuddly enough. And then she left me for a comic book writer.
Tone it up. Now control drop into your face.
I used to go about my day spending tens, even hundreds of calories doing just regular daily activities like lying down, brushing my teeth, reading a book. Now with the Slob 90X program, I can do these things in a lazy, almost catatonic way.
SLOB stands for slow, lazy, ordinary body. In just 90 days, I can help you become a computer nerd, a party animal, or just a plain old lovable slob.
Hello and welcome to Lunch Therapy. We are embarking on Interview Friday today. Have this incredible guest, Eric Davis, known as the Red Bastard. Many of you have seen his shows. Just so excited to have him on the show. Hoy, Guignelle is here. Melville wants her residuals. Yes, she was in that commercial there for our sponsor, Slob 90X. I'm sure the residuals will be coming in very soon. Todd Lee, hoy, great to see you. We've got a great guest for you, Todd Lee. I think you're going to really enjoy Eric Davis and the Red Bastard because it's right up your alley. This is a show where we interview people on Fridays. On Tuesdays, we do more of a variety show with comedians that come on and cause trouble. The show is called Lunch Therapy, and sometimes it even makes sense. All right, so this is the part of the show where we make announcements, and I'm going to make a very self-centered announcement. I'm doing comedy at this thing called Guys Night. And you know, it's not like a misogyny festival. It is actually a thing. The guy who puts it on, his name is Guy. So there's women in it, or at least one woman that I know of. But anyway, come and check it out. It's at the it's at the Pack Theater. And that's on July 5th. It's a Friday. It's right there in Hollywood. I expect you all there, including Vernis Clear, who just got back from Paris. Wow, I want to hear about Paris. Must have been incredible. She also was just coaching on a David Cronenberg film, which is super cool. Please share the secret of making an elephant clone. Yes, Matt. Matt Wright will be co-hosting on Tuesday, so I'll show him the secret of making. Maybe I'll make him into an elephant. I don't know. Guignelle says he's afraid of the Red Bastard. Some of us, sometimes, if you have secrets, you should be afraid. You should be. And, good, you're going to be there at the Guys Night. Cool. I also wanted to mention there's a fantastic production of Cabaret that's going on at the Nocturne Theater in Glendale. Our friend Kayla Fast is starring in the show. Don't miss it. It's so good. You're going to love it. It is a great role, meeting a great talent, and then there's all kinds of other incredible people in the show. And it's in an arena stage, so that's super fun because you can stare at the people across from you while they watch the play, which is always fun. All right, let's get into the breathing. On this show, we take 3 deep breaths because it calms down my nervous system. I get so excited when I have a guest like this on the show. In through the nose, out through the toes. Hold it. Let it go. Behind me is the Healing Vibrations. They are from an outfit from Seattle, Washington that does Healing Sounds on YouTube. Subscribe over there. I always have them playing in the background. They're so, I love them. In through the nose, out through the toes. Hold it. Let it go. Mama J from the Trust is here. Excited about the red bastard. Yes. You know, he's also from Kansas, I believe. We'll have to fact check that one, but Mama J is from Kansas. All the way from Kansas. Travis is cooking. This is Travis Schumacher doing the beautiful sounds back there. Okay, one more. In through the nose, out through the toes. Hold it. Let it go. Oh, that's nice. All right, one more thing I want to do is shout out to the Patreons. Patreons, thank you so much for contributing to the show. You are I have so much gratitude for all of you. There's the names listed above. This show couldn't happen without some kind of subsidy because it's just relentless. It's relentless, this show. Joel and Eric reunited. Levy took a workshop with me, and when we took the workshop from Eric Davis over at the Elysian Theater, it's so great to see you. Another Seattleite like myself. Todd says, after the debacle last night, I'm considering real estate in Amsterdam. Aren't we all? Aren't we all? We don't talk politics here, but yes, that was disturbing. All right, let's get into the interview here. All right, Eric Davis. This is how I found out about Eric Davis. Was a friend of ours, Gunnar Rohrbacher, who runs the Actors Comedy Studio here in Los Angeles. Hilarious guy. He said, you have to see this show. This guy is unbelievable. It's happening over at the Elysian Theater. He had gone to see one of Eric's shows, the Red Bastard, which is his alter ego. And we went over there. We grabbed Judd Nelson and and we went over there and saw this thing. Lily Musa came with us. We sat in like the third row, and Kamala, my wife Kamala, was just ready to just, because she heard it was very interactive and she was going to be super interactive. And when the show started, it was electric. It was electric. But this guy on the stage was such a mischievous interrogator of the audience. At the very beginning, the show was called Lie With Me, and at the very beginning of the show, he let it be known that this was a show about us, not about him. And he started asking people questions, and we put on our COVID masks and hid. And it was just unbelievable. What a fantastic show. So now, since then, I took the workshop. I found out there was a workshop with him. I went and took the workshop. Levy, who's in the chat room, was also in the workshop, and it was just, it was such a delight because when we went in, you expect this instigator, this person who's going to put you on the spot and make all kinds of trouble, and you see this guy, Eric Davis, who is just the most gentle, wonderful, thoughtful person, scholarly, and inside there's a demon. And he teaches you how to basically in this workshop, which is about the bouffon, which is a very specific kind of clown. He teaches you to kind of let go of all your crazy inhibitions that you have, all the things that have layered on you that prevent you from being a fun child. And we did all these communal group exercises, and it's 4 weekends. I recommend it to anybody out there that wants to up their game, if they want to just live their life and be more present. Please do that. There's one coming up. It's at the Elysian Theater. Also, I find out this guy was in 3 Cirque du Soleil shows. He's a longtime clown. I'm not going to talk any more about him. I'm going to bring him on. This is Interview Friday with Eric Davis.
It's that kind of show.
All right. Eric Davis. Welcome to Lunch Therapy.
Hey, thank you so much, man. I gotta make you my manager. What an intro.
All right. Well, I only get people on this show that I'm super interested in their art form and also their mind and how their mind works. So, I'm just majorly enthusiastic about you. After seeing
Sounds
your
like
show. Yeah.
You're missing some sort of monetization opportunity. There must be some really boring people with like awful work that would pay you really good money to be on your show.
Yeah, exactly. That's why I don't make any money. It's all love for the craft. And also just, I used to do a podcast called Fat Free Film a long time ago, which was about making independent films on a low budget. And one of the reasons that I started doing it was just because I wanted to learn about filmmaking. And this particular show, which started during COVID, was more about trying to get everybody's minds right and trying to get people, in the creative spirit, even though we were in that crazy lockdown and things were kind of shut down. But it also has melded a little bit of what I used to do with Fat Free Film too, which is just about me learning.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
That's great.
So the thing that I saw, which was Lie With Me, that show, was mind-blowing because I've been involved in a lot of theater in Los Angeles and have seen a lot of theater throughout the country. But I'd really never seen anything like this. And it was so interactive, so electric, so exciting, but also challenging for the audience, almost to the point where I feel like maybe sometimes you have to lock the doors. I don't know. Do you find the audience is open to interacting with you most of the time?
I think so. I mean, I think there's pardon me, I have a little allergy here. I think that there's a lot of edges in the audience and there are thresholds and there's a general kind of threshold of the audience, but also every individual has their own particular threshold. And I'm just trying to be aware of where that's at. And, I may come to some people and I see that they can't even hold eye contact. So I know that being in the space with me or just the ideas that are present in the space has put them at the threshold. So I don't necessarily work with that person. And I'm looking for like visual cues of who I'm going to do what with. But there was one show that I did, maybe in the UK someplace. I'm trying to remember where. I just remember going up the stairs, and I hadn't even really been too far into the show, but I just started to walk up the stairs to, as Red Bastard to speak to somebody. And, whatever things are happening, people are projecting or something. I got near this lady, and I hadn't even done anything yet, but she just was like, instinctively, she had a glass of red wine, and she just threw the red wine at me and then ran out of the theater.
That's hilarious.
So she was at her, at her capacity. I was like, okay. But I hadn't even done anything. I was just like in her proximity, and she was just nervous about it. So, but then I've also had people who, divulge and share very intimate things, information, and take risks in the theater. And sometimes people after a show, oh, do you remember when you made this person do that? But actually, that's not what I do at all. I try to find that threshold. There's a line there, and I try to say, like, okay, here's the line. Can we move this line together? Is it possible to have some movement of that? So
you're such a sensitive. It's funny because you're such a sensitive person, and in that demon, you can sense that people are going to be taken care of, and people will take risks, but it's going to be on their own terms. And you get that feeling, and you're also like so much in control of the audience. Most of the time, probably at times, you might feel like you're not like completely in control because you don't know what's going to happen. But is it because you've done so many shows that you kind of have an idea of how people are going to respond?
Yeah, I mean, I think that, I think of the shows as a playground where I'm coming to meet the audience. And, so I hope that to be a guide and to guide the audience, but sometimes also to be guided by them. But my shows are definitely highly structured, and the more that I do them, the more I understand that, like, I'm making offers, and I begin to know, like, most of the time it's going to be this, it might be this, or there's a wild card where it could be something I never come across before, and I have to try to keep that aspect ready in me to not be like a person who's having a conversation but not listening and just wants to drive the thing their own way, which I just did with you.
No, that's good. That's good. I think the costume that you wear, did that evolve somehow, or is that out of a tradition of clowning?
I just had a teacher one time say to me, she gave me the prompt, make a body that's even more fun for you to move in than your own body. And so, I used to be, in some areas I'm still quite angular and long and lithe, less than others. Even though my belly's coming. But so at the time it was quite fun to like play around with being more voluptuous and curvy. And so that distance from my own kind of natural body gave me a lot of pleasure to play. Yeah.
It also gives you a kind of bulkiness that can be fun. I want to show some of your street work here. I just have a little clip. Oh man. Okay, that's so hilarious. So
I can't believe how incredibly awkward it is. The experience of having yourself being seen watching your own work.
Yeah. 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 I always watch people when they watch their own work. And it's interesting because some of us, we really get uncomfortable watching our own work. Are you like that? Are you like that?
Oh yeah.
It's so funny.
I'm actually enjoying it, anyway.
It's super fun. Well, those balls or whatever you have in your costume, they also give you kind of something in between you and the other people that maybe make it maybe more socially acceptable to be putting your butt in their face or whatever. Does that help in that way?
Oh yeah, the mask of it for sure. I think, there's something about the body mask, and it's related to bouffon, but it can also be for clown anything as a layer of game that invites fascination. And also the body itself proposes different games, just the architecture and structure of it that you can figure out to play. And sometimes it might be just something like, oh, this looks really interesting, like just when I hit this pose and trying to figure out those things, or just sometimes like, oh, okay, there's a game that I can play with the audience. They seem to like this thing. So there's a lot of opportunity there.
You speak about that bouffon character, which is a kind of, Well, he's got a different point of view than a lot of clowns that I've seen. Like a lot of clowning, when we talk about clowning, it's about trying to strive. We were talking to John Gilkey last week, and he was talking about how they strive for the sublime, but they fail, but they're always striving for that sublime. Whereas this, what do you think drives the red bastard or the bouffon clown?
Well, I mean, it depends on what the agenda of the artist is and what the agenda of the persona of the bouffon is. So say like, I'm just Eric, but then I have this persona, which is Red Bastard, and Red Bastard has his own particular drives, which may not necessarily be exactly the same as other bouffon. But for Red Bastard, like, I think he just likes, let's say there's a mixing board, right? And on this mixing board are all these different channels. So Red Bastard's channel mix is like mischievous, is super high. He's super interested in tension. He's super interested in the audience's fear and desire. Those things are very curious about those things, and he loves play. So like, if you're having a good time, he's like, "Oh, you're having a good time? I love you're having a good time." If he's like, "Oh, are you nervous about that?" "Ooh, I'm interested and very like, I love that you're a little nervous about that. I'm not gonna break you, but like, I'm super curious about why is that nervous."
Yeah.
And I think that there's a couple of different ways that people can approach bouffon. The Red Bastard is like a solo show, and there's a very direct conversation, and it's confrontational in a way. Not that it's like mean, and sometimes I play with it with the energy of aggression, but also sometimes with intimacy. Like, it's very dynamic in that way. But then you can also have bouffon who are kind of outsiders, who are just very curious about the audience, and they watch these things, but they're not humans, so they have no particular agenda to change the humans. Just like, "Oh, look at all the things that you do to each other. That's really fun. Those must be games. You must be doing them because they're fun. So now I'm gonna try to understand what those games are, and I'm gonna recreate those games for you." And you get them kind of reflected back to you in a distorted funhouse mirror. So like, some bouffon, they're super into mocking the world. And I suppose there's a certain amount of that with Red Bastard as well, but it comes out in a different way. There's a lot of conversation. There's game, but there's also a kind of a Socratic dialogue where he's pretending to be naive about things and pose questions to the audience to get them to...
I think that's one of the really exciting aspects of the show, because you're getting people to, at least in that show, you're getting people to define what it is to be in a relationship, what it is to be in love, and what the rules are. And rules about sex and things like that, which I was amazed at how people talk. They just really, a lot of people just opened up, and that was really cool. There also, when I think about it, there were vulnerable moments for you too, like when you first come out on the stage and you're like, "Hi, I'm Eric," and then you just and then you run back or whatever. You made the entrance like several times. You're like, "That's not it. That's not it." And I love that quality of seeing the you trying things, failing, and then trying again. It seems to be a theme with clowns in general, whether they be the bouffon or not. And then you kind of reveal yourself at times. I love it when you play that instrument and you said that thing about 10,000 hours. Like, that was awesome. Was that, does the show develop? Is it different every night, for one thing? You said it's very structured.
That show, I remounted. I made that in 2017, and then we went through the pandemic, and I looked at both of my shows, and I thought, "Oh, I don't know. Do I want to do these anymore? Will these still work?" And I eventually started to put them up against, like, oh, they're still functional. They're from a time in my life where, which is in the past. So they're not necessarily at the heart of where I am, but there's still something which I think which is medicinal about them for me. What was your question? I lost track of the
Well,
question.
okay, I was saying, was it different every night? But there, okay, let me
Oh,
make an example. You at one point said, "My neighbor's in the audience." Do you remember this? You were like,
okay. Yeah,
my
you said that
neighbor's here."
recently.
Yeah,
Yes.
and
yeah.
and then you kind of got derailed, like because, and I don't know whether that was intentional or whether you actually got
I was
derailed.
completely off track. Yeah, I mean,
Great.
there's a script, and there are places that I head, and there are conversations that I have. So I know that, you know, this kind of general note card about this figure is here, and within that figure there are these actions, and then but then sometimes here I might have a conversation with the audience. That conversation I might have to open up more pockets to like address because it might be really interesting, or maybe I'm looking to get a particular thing from the audience, and then I move on to this beat. So there's a lot of juggling and wiggle room around there, and that space is like, oh my you know, I had a neighbor who came to see my show,
Yeah.
which I was like, okay, it's quite sensitive. Like, so, do you want neighbors to know, how much do you want your neighbors to
Right.
know about you?
Right.
And so, like, it was really actually wonderful that he came. But I
Yeah.
thought, I'm going to play this game of like, I asked this person not to come to the show, and he came in,
Yeah.
playing around with that. And
Yeah.
it was a lot of fun. But I had so much fun that I was like, I'm just circling around. Where's the on route back onto the show? And I couldn't find it. So I had to ask the audience. And earlier on in my career, I may not have played as much with that clown energy. Now I feel fine. I don't care so much if I'm doing like bouffon energy, which, let's say, like, it's more that the audience or society is the target of the joke. But then I can take it around and move it into clown energy to say, like, I'm an idiot who doesn't know where I'm at.
Yeah. Yeah.
So then it ports more towards the artist.
It's great though. It's great. It's a great moment because we can all connect.
Yeah, and it also creates, I used to want to keep, clowns over here, this is this genre, but actually that clown energy, that vulnerability from time to time is nice because it also keeps something more dynamic. Otherwise, if I'm not as vulnerable, then it can still work and be fun, but there's it's more static up there. But if sometimes there are moments where you're like, I find that the audience really appreciates that as well.
Do you think that you are like an introverted person? You said when you were a child you were sort of nervous, kind of a nervous child. Is that true, or is that some bullshit that you said in an interview somewhere?
Well, hey, I'm a complex person. Okay. Yeah, sometimes I can be painfully introverted, but I can also be an extrovert too. So I can move from space to space. But
Yeah.
but even just yesterday, I was just thinking like I need to get out more. So
Yeah.
even today, like being on,
Yeah.
although I'm having a coffee with someone today, so I'm happy
good.
about that.
Good.
Yeah,
Does
but
the
yeah, I
do-
can be shy.
we talk about the mask? Where did you first start doing mask work, and was there some kind of a freeing element to it? Did you do it with? I'm thinking of this Sue Morrison. Did you do mask
did-
work with her?
I
She's
did
one of your
clown through
mentors,
mask.
right?
Yeah, I did clown through mask with Sue Morrison. That was very, very influential. I was thinking my very first mask show was when I was in kindergarten, where we had to like we had to do the Three Little Pigs.
Yeah.
And we made these masks with brown paper sacks and cardboard noses and construction paper noses.
Yeah.
And there was a big flat that was like this big wooden flat with just a trip board. And then we were on the stage, it was a gymnasium stage, and there was a big like 3-foot drop off, which is like the height of you when you're like a kindergartner.
Yeah.
And so I got this mask on. The eyes are like this, they're like the Charlie Brown eyes on the ghost sheet, so they don't line up. I can't see. And they say, you're going to say your line, and then you trip this board. And I say, well, if I trip that board, won't this thing come down on me? They said, yeah. So you have to run. But I'm also,
no.
I can't see, and there's a drop off at the edge, and so it was terrifying. That was my introduction to mask work. But
That's
then
great.
After that, I suppose I was in university, and there was there's a school in Paris. It's no longer in Paris. I think it's it's moved someplace else in France now. But a physical theater school called the École Jacques Lecoq. And I had some teachers at the University of Kansas who used to teach there. So we did mask work in those courses too, which was super influential to me. Yeah.
Matt Wright says, I love the concept of persona as platform here. when I was a performer, it was useful and powerful to send a persona up to the mic. It's not you. We are all full and made of characters. Matt is he's a punk rocker. He was in the band Gas Huffer back in the day. And he did have a persona that was, because when he and I went to high school together, when we were in high school, he was like a shy kid. I mean, I don't know whether kind of completely shy, but he was not like jumping up on the stage and doing what he was doing when he became this, leader of, lead singer of a band. So yeah, I think sometimes there's just like a freeing nature about that.
We have so many roles.
Oh, look at this. Look at this. We're moving. Yeah. Anyway, you're saying. Yes.
We're doing the dance break early.
The show moves. Yeah, tell me, we have roles.
Oh. Yeah, just that we have so many roles inside of us. So like the one who does this, the one who does this. Some are more forward, but the other ones are still there and accessible to us. And like your friend said, the other roles may have different agendas. Like they may be super extrovert, but they are also, that role with the different agendas is still there to serve our agenda. So like, for example, sometimes Red Bastard might want to do different things than I particularly do. And I have to, but like, I'm the creator of the show. So he has to he has to stay within certain bounds. If I were to let Red Bastard completely follow its own agenda, it would be chaos because he's much wilder than I. Yeah, Eric needs to be there to say these are the boundaries.
I like that. Levy says, I'm curious if the mask is what gives you the ability to be able to do things in public like those clips. Would you be able to do something like that as Eric without the mask?
Oh no, I'd get in trouble.
You would get in trouble, yeah. What about?
I think. Now
you worked with David Shiner for a while, and he was kind of known for that as well. We had Stefan Haves on the show, and he was saying that he met David Shiner in Paris, and he was on the streets doing all kinds of mayhem, just similar to what you were doing. But it's kind of a tradition of that, right? I mean, that's like a clown thing. You think?
Yeah, especially in the 70s. I don't think there's as much of that really here in the U.S. has really lost a lot of its anarchic spirit. Even at the busker, I'm not really a busker, but I know in those things it became very much, you have to get a permit and things like that. And I think over maybe in Paris, there's much more free spirit. I mean, there was its own, as I understand, like it has its own internal system, but I think that was a huge thing. And apparently David would get quite wild with things like stopping traffic and doing things with the cars. And so it was just a bit of like, the anarchist, the trickster, like those parts, like super high in the mix for David on the street, I think.
How did you develop your clown? Like, how did you get into it? And since you were not on the street, like a lot of people we've talked to and clown, they were either doing improv or they were out on the street doing juggling or whatever, and then started speaking and then became the clown that they are. What was your entry point?
I think initially it was improvisation.
Yeah.
I was at a very small school in Kansas where I grew up, and no stoplight in the town kind of thing, busing people in from an hour away.
Yeah.
But somehow we had this, there was a theater department there, and I was like, man, maybe I'll do this, or maybe I'll do theater. I don't know. I had no real super ambition towards it. But when I got in there, I discovered the improvisation. And I realized I was way better at that than I'd been at anything else in my life.
Yeah.
So it was interesting to say, like, oh, here's a thing that I seem to really excel at. There were these competitions, and I was always in the top place of the state in those things. So I was kind of like, So I started there. Again, I went to the University of Kansas, and they had these different genres of physical theater. And the teacher there, he didn't actually teach clown at university. Because one year he said, is there something you guys would like to study from the Lecoq, pedagogy that maybe we haven't covered yet? And somebody said, what about clown? And he just paused and he said, well, the thing about clown is if the audience doesn't like you, they don't like you. And that's all he said about it. And we didn't do it. We didn't cover it.
It seems like the opposite, really.
Yeah, so we're like, what does it mean? What happened to you? What's going to happen to us? So eventually, some friends and I, we hired somebody to give us a workshop, and we took whatever we were ready to take from that workshop. We made this show, which I remember at the time thinking, like, there's a question that came up. So should we look at the audience here? And I, of all people, was like, I don't think we should look at the audience.
Yeah, really?
Which, this is very young Eric. So now I'm all about like my connection with the audience, which I really picked up that with Sue. And then, so we made this clown show of Frankenstein. It was really more of a burlesque of the novel. But then my friend Alex Kipp, we were in this clown company. We all moved from Kansas City to New York, and we had this show of Frankenstein. And then we let that go, and he studies with a guy named Bob Berkey. And Alex comes back with these exercises, and he's like, okay, we're gonna make Frankenstein again, like Mary Shelley's Frankenstein, not the movie, but the novel. He said, but we're just gonna make a 15-minute show, like 15 minutes, where there are actions and lines that you do. That the clown has lines, the clowns have actions, but we are not those characters at all. You're just yourself, and it's like you have a job to say this line and do this action, and then we kept looping it. And anything that happened in our outside of this text, a feeling I have about what my partner's doing, what's happening with the audience, I'm allowed to expand and play with that. So it's kind of ended up being like, in a way, like noises off.
Yeah.
That they are trying to do the show, but the show is about all the things that are happening around the show. I remember it exploding, that show exploding.
Yeah.
Of showing us who we were as our clowns in relationship to ourselves, in relationship to the audience, in relationship to each other. And those, from night to night, it would change. I was with my partner at the time, Audrey Crabtree, a wonderful clown in Missouri. She runs the Kansas City Fringe Festival now. But we were doing this scene where I was like Victor Frankenstein, but I just decided, I think Lord of the Rings had come out then. I was like, I'd rather play Gollum. So we're doing this Frankenstein play, and I just start to play Gollum for Lord of the Rings. She was so pissed at me, but I've abandoned the scene. But the audience was like just pissing themselves to see her honest reaction. But they could see how ridiculous in that moment, the need for control, the ridiculousness of exasperation, my ridiculousness to not like, and I remember having this conversation after, just like, I can't believe that you did that. We're supposed to be in the scene. I said, no, I think we did it. The audience was like pissing themselves. She's like, but I don't want to be like, I know. But sometimes there's this thing where sometimes your clown is not what you want it to be. Sometimes it is, sometimes it isn't. Yeah. And I remember like just my synapses were just exploding, making new, connections during that show.
I remember you in the workshop saying at one point, and this seemed like blasphemy, all the theater training and actor training that I've had, you said, play at the character. Don't be the character, play at it. And just the idea of doing that, first of all, it's pretty fun. It's pretty fun to play at a character, and it's pretty fun to be able to see yourself playing a character and then also check in with the audience and see if they're digging it. Which is what you do not do in traditional theater at all. It's a crime, in fact. There is something really interesting about that. Is that something that is one of the things that's different about clowning that is than from traditional acting?
Yeah, I talked about this a little bit in the class that, if you go to see a theater production of Hamlet, you go to see the character of Hamlet, right? Yeah. And Hamlet is the star of that show. And if you go to see a clown show of Hamlet, you're going to see a clown try to do Hamlet and fuck it up. And the clown is the star of that show. The clown's doing Hamlet, but if you concentrate too much on Hamlet, the clown disappears, and it's not going to be right. So you have to have really a lot of space for the clown. And if you go to see a bouffon show, of Hamlet. And I don't even know if I necessarily even said this at the beginning of this interview, but basically, yeah, the audience laughs at the clown for the ridiculousness and the flaws, and the bouffon laughs at the audience for their ridiculousness and flaws. So that's the kind of genre of the bouffon. So if you go see a bouffon show, then you're going to see a bouffon, their pleasure to make fun and mock Hamlet, the role of Hamlet.
That you said something too about when you find pleasure as the bouffon, you do it until there's no pleasure left, or you keep doing it because there's pleasure. And then you also spoke of something called obligatory actions, where you're doing something because you feel obliged to be doing it. Can you talk about the difference between those?
Oh yeah, so this is like the beginning of the workshop where we're really honing in on the player. Then this player is going to generate material eventually to it's going to move into satire later on. But at the beginning, we're trying to find this sensibility of that persona of the bouffon, and that these bouffon have just so much pleasure to embody things and to mock things. And so we begin to do exercises like we're doing movement exercises, but we're really asking like, how does the performer enjoy doing things? Like you can sometimes when you're improvising, the writer's mind comes in and say, oh, I've got to get it right, or I've got to do things in a certain way, and it might kill the pleasure of the player, right? You can see sometimes when the eyes glaze over, or when the improviser is, they're not in the pleasure of their play. And you can, when you see that they're in the pleasure of the play, sometimes we call it je, like their eyes light up and you can feel this glow that's coming off of their body. Yeah. And so the bouffon that we're looking for in that course are very, very ecstatic players. So we're looking to see like, what's the part of the play that's very indulgent. It is a very different mix than an actor. Sometimes there's crossover on it, but because this player is looking for the ecstasy of becoming things, of doing things, it allows them it gives them the license to be quite bold with their mocking. And that pleasure of the one who's doing the mocking is the one that what allows the audience to come along for the ride, because it's so infectious, that pleasure.
It is. I want to play another clip here of there's a latecomer to the play.
I knew you were fucking coming. Special seat just... No, that's not your seat. Your seat's right here, right here, right here. Special, very special seat for you. Right here, right on top of the other lady who was fucking late. Right there. You better drink that beer fast, because it's gonna get fucking crazy in here.
That was hilarious. So that mocking nature is, you go pretty far with it, but people love it, right? I mean, they just kind of love it.
I think so. Yeah. I mean, I've gotten a lot of, good reviews. Yeah. I mean, sure, it's art. So there might be some people who, for sure, there's going to be somebody who doesn't like it, but for the most part, yeah, for sure.
Yeah. And the audience, and even if people don't even know they're coming to see that kind of show, when they start to see it, I think it makes people giddy. So you also worked in Cirque du Soleil, and I wanted to hear, is that where you developed a lot of your clown techniques, or was this a totally different environment, doing these lavish circus acts?
I think what Cirque du Soleil offered me, one of the main things I had to learn while I was there was about to really work on my fixed point and stillness. Because if I would do something and kind of drop it, it wouldn't hold on that large of a space. I mean, you got about 2,500 seats, in those circus tents. Yeah. And I would literally, sometimes I would watch a video of myself and say, oh, damn it. So then I began to do this thing where I basically on stage, I'd be like, hold something, and just my 2, 3, 4, 5, like in my head, hold that space
Yeah.
so that it had grammar to it. And then also, yeah, some shows that I do are built around a conversation where I can reach anybody, have a conversation with anybody. And the Cirque du Soleil shows are very different from that. So like they are much larger. You can't necessarily see the people in the audience, and so they work in very different ways.
There is a physicality to your Red Bastard too that is like so much fun. I mean, there was it seems like the physicality is a huge portion of the show, but there's also this dialogue that's going on. But you have like reoccurring themes, like when you're eating things up, when you really enjoy things or whatever. How do you find these things when in the rehearsal process? What is the rehearsal process like for something like this? I mean, you're by yourself. Yeah. I mean, it's got to be difficult. Do you have a director?
I am always better if I have another person in the room, for sure, because I have so much, I mean, if I'm on the outside watching somebody else, it's clear I can see things. But if I'm the person who's making it, I have so much anxiety and doubt. If I'm just in a room with a mirror, the mirror says whatever you think, So I really, really thrive to have a director there. The last person I worked with was Aitor Basauri, from a Spanish gentleman from a company called Spy Monkey, and he was such a joy and a pleasure to work with. So smart, very philosophical, and a practitioner. So I really, really enjoyed working with Aitor.
And what were the directors like in Cirque du Soleil? How does someone put together one of those shows? Do people bring in acts and then they decide whether this fits into the show or not? How does that happen? Do you know?
I think that the directors can be quite different. I had different directors, and they were night and day. I'll speak about the good ones.
Okay.
That I really appreciate. That I really appreciated working with. I worked on a show called Iris, basically Iris, like a film Iris, in LA. They'd set, and I think Gilkey spoke about that show. So I was
that at the Kodak Theater? Was that where that was?
That's right. At the time, it was the Kodak, now the Dolby Theater, I believe.
Yeah.
And where they hold the Oscars. And so we do that show 10 months out of the year. But the director of that show was a guy named Philippe Découfflet, who's a choreographer from Paris. And he was so lovely in this sense that he would have the dancers or the clowns or whatever say, okay, make something, show me something, right? And so they'd make something. It's like, okay, something else. Okay, something else. But he was just, he didn't get in there and manipulate you or do anything. It's like, okay, and he would just go and be like, oh, like you get past your first idea, your second idea, your third shitty idea, your fourth, your fifth, and sixth, and eventually be like, that's really interesting. Okay, take that. Then I'll put that here. And so he gave a lot of license for the people to create. And he wanted the creativity of the individuals and of the ensemble to come forward. And when I began to really appreciate it is at a certain point during the show, I think some changes were made. The director goes away, an artistic director comes in. The shows are constantly moving around. People might be out of the show. Something happens technically, so that the thing that's here, it doesn't end up staying set. It begins to move around constantly. So there's a thankless job of the artistic director who has to kind of keep the show together. Yeah. But at some point, there was something at the end which wasn't working so well. There's a bunch of bungee things that were happening, and the entire cast come out doing these things, and something had changed about it. So the director, Philippe, was brought back in to look at it. He's like, ugh. But he's there for like a day.
Yeah.
2 days. Something. So he's like, I saw him be like, gets out his paper, comes in for the next rehearsal. You did this, you did this, you did this, you did this. It explodes.
Wow.
So he had that ability the entire time, but says, I'm going to give you license to create, to show me something that I wouldn't expect, and to use the richness of the collective. So I really, really was blown away by that, and that's
That's something
Pretty
I like about the work that you do in your workshop too, is you do get a chance to just go up on stage and just try and entertain people. You know what I mean? Like that is it's a as an actor, I don't think I've ever been put in that position before where they're just like, and I see this in different clown, like I took Chad Damiani's workshop as well. And he would put you up and say like, do the most incredible thing that you can possibly show us. And, you know what I mean? Like, and
bound
it's
to fail, bound to fail.
Yeah. And all of a sudden you're just like, oh my God, what do I do? You know, and then you can also experiment with the audience. So when you're workshopping your shows, do you do them as works in progress? Because like in the theater, we usually have previews. How do you do it? Do you take it around and just keep working it? Like how does one do this?
Favorite way to do it is that I go into a space with an outside eye or director, and we have the theme. We start to play around, improvise around the theme. Improvise. I record the things. I write down the good text that comes out. Sometimes I start to say, okay, now I got this idea. Maybe I'll do this. I'll write some text for it before I improvise. So it's a combination of improvisation and honing, or just writing things and then trying to get that up on its feet. And then because the two shows that I have with Red Bastard, I have a lot of conversation with the audience.
Yeah.
I'll do little workshops where I'll bring an audience in just to try out those things. And I won't tell them what I'm doing. And I'll go, sometimes I have an agenda, or I'm curious to see what happens with this, and I'll do the thing. And then afterwards, I'll just sort of assess how it went, what I got. And then I won't tell them what I was looking for if I wasn't, getting those things, and I'll do it again. I'll make an adjustment. And then after that, after I've had a couple things to try some things out, then I'll say, okay, what was your experience? Okay, here's what I was trying to do. Oh, okay. Is there something I was doing or not doing that might have led to that? Or are there other places that you feel like this is going, to try to get that information? And then I'll take that and I'll come back in and I'll rework and rewrite. That was a very, for me, beloved part of the process to figure those things out.
Yeah, it sounds like it. So now we're running out of time, unfortunately, but this has been so interesting. I want to find out what you're doing next, or how do you envision things? Do you make vision boards? Do you put note cards on the wall? Do you say, I want to be here, this is where I want to be in 5 years? Do you do any of that kind of thing?
Oh man, I'm very bad at that. I actually started a little journal to like a vision thing.
Yeah.
I'm, what's on there? I want to make a new show. So I'm talking to a guy. I'm meeting a guy next week to get into a room about that. Not exactly sure what that is, but I'm pretty sure it's not exactly Red Bastard. So I want to have a little bit of freedom outside of that particular, the confines of that persona.
Yeah.
I'm continuing to teach, and I want to do more directing, actually.
You do?
Honestly. Yeah, I like directing. And I want to do more show creation. So I think that the classes, I'm through that. I look for people who are maybe interested to make shows that like have something, have the stuff to make a show.
Yeah.
And do that. And I want to continue to explore my own work as well. Figure out, I'm at a threshold myself, in terms of like coming past the pandemic, moving into my 50s. So also figuring out like, what is it like what's the heart of me now, and what does that want to create or talk about? So figuring out those things as well.
So interesting. Do you meditate or do anything like that?
I started to, I do meditate sometimes. Yeah.
Well, I mean, your work is just incredible. You're just one of the hugest talents in this, LA clown scene and around. Are you going to do anything at Edinburgh or anything like that coming up?
Not this year, but I would like to, hopefully, if this meeting goes well with this person and I, will start to create something, and maybe next year we'll have something together for that.
Well, thank you so much for being on the show. This has just been
it was such a pleasure. Thank you for asking.
To have you on the show. Now it's time for us to do the dance break. And I've got a cover song. It's pretty mellow. It's not really a danceable song. But I just thought it would be a nice song. It's a little Cat Stevens here to end the show.
Oh,
Yeah, Vernis Clear says, great show, thank you. Mike Knox says, hold the space. I like it. I like that too, the idea of stillness. It's really, you know what I mean? Are you frozen? I'm frozen.
no, that's holding the space.
I
That's
know,
what he's talking about. Okay.
All right, let's do this thing. Dance break time. Thanks to Eric Davis for being on the show. Your next show, do we know when your next show is? You can go to the website, redbastard.com.
Yeah, I'm going to do something at the Elysian Theater, July 27th, 10 p.m. There'll be a Red Bastard show. And then I've got a class coming up, also at the Elysian. That's going to start Thursday, July 11th. There's like 4 sessions for Bouffon 1.
Oh, fantastic. And there's a link in the show notes to that. There's a link to redbastard.com. All right, dance time. All right, we got some Cat Stevens here. This is Judd Caswell.
If you want to sing out, sing out. And if you want to be free, be free. 'Cause there's a million ways to be. You know that there are.
Got a request for this.
And if you want to live high, live high. And if you want to live low, live low.
I got one of these.
'Cause there's a million ways to go.
Yeah.
You know that there are.
Oh, yeah, I like that.
You want the opportunities on.
You can't do it. You can't do it.
And if you find a new way, you can do it today.
All right, thanks everybody for being here. Go to Judd Caswell's site, check out more of his cover songs, and we'll see you next week.